Good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show. 105.9 The Zone ESPN. Driven by your next Ford F-150 at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. Best selection of pre-owned and new Ford F-150s in Mississippi and the Southeast. Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. And you're listening to 105.9 The Zone ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Big week in the sports world here in the state of Mississippi. And we thought we would bring on Jim Richmond, Vice President of Corporate Communications for C Spire. And he joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And C Spire has been in and a big part of sports marketing in the state of Mississippi and the Southeast for 30 years. And Jim and I thought we would talk a little bit about it. Jim Richmond, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Bo. It's a pleasure to be back with you and talk a little sports.
You know, we've done this a couple of times.
Yeah, we have. We've both been around for a while, and that's a good thing.
Well, so y'all have had sports partnerships with teams and entities and schools, and been heavily involved at every level the last 30 years. And I see where y'all are celebrating 30 years of your sports partnerships and sports marketing.
Yeah, you know, we're actually this year in 2023, we've been celebrating our 35th anniversary, which is back when we started the wireless side of our, company back in 1988, and really started sports marketing a little over 30 years ago. So early on, way back in the 90s, we realized that, to build our brand, that we needed to be where people are be related to areas and entities that people are passionate. And that mix or that recipe has been very successful, very good for us. I mean, we started early on, and then, as we've grown as a company, our success is, we've been very successful. And as if that success has grown, we've been able to just continue to give back, and not only around sports, but obviously a whole lot of other areas too, academic scholarships and STEM and coding, and the list goes on and on. But sports has been very consistent, a very constant part of our marketing efforts, for 30 years, a little over 30 years now.
Yeah, and that wasn't today. Everybody wants a piece of the sports marketing world. Y'all were on the front end of that, especially in this area, in the Sun Belt, which is impressive. I mean, look, I remember when I started this in 2003, and I was running around town, and people were like, "Sports talk radio? What?" And now, it's Sports Talk Radio Podcast.com and everything else. So let's talk about your relationships with the colleges and universities in the state of Mississippi first, Jim, and let's kind of work back from there.
Yeah, so we started those relationships really back in, I guess it was 1993. Started obviously with, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, USM, Jackson State. Then we kind of grew from there, went with Alcorn and Mississippi Valley. And then obviously as we've grown as a company, we've kind of expanded out. So over time, during this 30 years, we've continued to be a part of those universities, but also, UAB and South Alabama, and then expanded to Alabama and Auburn. And we've done some things with Tennessee and Vanderbilt over the years. And we focus from a business services standpoint, focus Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi. And so, again, as we expanded our brand over in Alabama, one of the first things that we did were built relationships with the University of Alabama and Auburn. We're obviously on, Nick Saban's headset every Saturday, and the brand awareness and brand exposure is just unlimited. I mean, it's not just, the game itself, but, for instance, yesterday I saw a post from a pretty big sports entity that had a picture of Arnett and Dan Mullen side by side, and they both had C Spire headsets on. And
that's
so
cool.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a lot of additional pickup like that. Wall Street Journal ran an article on something Alabama related, and Nick Saban standing there with a C Spire brand behind him, in the print version of and online version of Wall Street Journal. So things like that are just pretty big for us. It's really, again, the brand exposure has been terrific, and college sports is has obviously been a big part of that. As you well know, we've done a lot on the high school level as well. We established a relationship way back with Mississippi High School Activities Association. The y'all versus us football games and Bright Lights football games, a lot of your listeners and a lot of our customers, they remember those. And I get questions all the time about, hey, why don't y'all bring those games back? And, there's so much enthusiasm and so much passion, again, for those games, but it's kind of a different era today. When we did that, there was very little high school football on TV. And we, at the height of that, those games, we were broadcasting to 12, almost 13 million households across the Southeast through the Fox Sports network. And, of course, it wasn't just the TV exposure, but the actual at-game experience was just over the top. I mean, we had skydivers and flyovers and pyrotechnics, and we brought in jumbotrons way before any of the high schools had jumbotrons. It was just really a pretty cool experience, and it's crazy that all these years later I still hear about those games all the time, and that's impact. We had impact on customers, impact on our footprint, and that's
sure.
Really up. So
I loved it. So I broadcast from some of those venues and stadiums for y'all. And this is so funny. We're visiting with Jim Richmond, Vice President of Corporate Communications at C Spire, celebrates over 30 years of being involved in sports marketing in the state of Mississippi and around the Southeast, SEC, high school, NBA, Sun Belt, Conference USA, all kinds of good stuff. And I'll never forget this, Jim. One morning y'all had me at Pearl for Pearl Brandon, and y'all were doing y'all versus us that night. And I've got John Perry, the head football coach at Pearl on. And I'm doing the show from the press box. So we're overlooking the field. And he comes up, he's all happy. He puts on the headset. We're talking. He looks out at midfield and he sees that the thing is spray painted. And he goes, "What the?" And thank goodness he didn't say anything, and I can't believe he caught himself. I wouldn't have been able to. And then that added even more fuel to the game and to the telecast. And you know what I think? I think y'all drove so many high schools to start streaming, which is pretty awesome when you think about it, Jim.
Yeah, again, it's impact. We love having impact on entities and businesses and just consumers out there. And obviously, again, high level sports, but obviously there's a lot of passion for high school sports. We've done not only the Bright Lights games, y'all versus us way back, but we've been a part of the state championships in basketball and done some things with football for years. And great relationship, with MHSAA and the MAIS as well. And that's really been good. And then on the pro level, we have relationships, and you mentioned several there, but we've done some things with the Grizzlies over the years. We've got a great relationship with the Saints and the Pelicans, not only from a sponsorship standpoint, but also those entities, they have a disaster recovery program with us. So they store data with us. We're basically their disaster recovery backup, and a great business relationship. But we've recently done some things with the Tennessee Titans, and really excited about that relationship as we expand more in the Tennessee area as well. But it's been great. The pro side is a lot of fun. We've hosted some business events where we brought Kirk Herbstreit and Lee Corso in a couple of times, and did some dinners, receptions, and Q&A with those guys, and pretty incredible. And then I think about the tennis, the professional tennis, and I think you went multiple times to Memphis when we were.
That was so much fun.
We had the Cellular South Cup there, and sitting side by side with people like Venus Williams and Maria Sharapova, and again, being able to bring those types of folks into our footprint, associate with our brand. It's just been very positive, all the way around. So,
that tennis tournament that y'all sponsored, that first of all, that Memphis Tennis Club is really pretty, iconic, so cool. And it's funny when you and Dave had me up one of those years, and we kind of had all access because we're roaming through the tunnels to go through wherever we went. I walked by Maria Sharapova, and she's dating. I think you remember this, Jim. She's dating one of the Lakers, And he's like 6'10", and I'm like, that guy is huge. That's one of the, and then y'all had, obviously some great seats, and that's when you really appreciate how fast that serve is coming off that racket when Andy Roddick and Sharapova and those type players are in that tournament.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Again, a lot of fun for us. Those types of things are great because it's really great for our business, but it's also a lot of fun to be associated, with those events. And, we've done a lot in the golf world too. You mentioned that when you opened up, but we did obviously been a part of the Sanderson Farms tournament here for many years. We were the presenting sponsor for the Mississippi Gulf Coast Classic, which later became the Rapiscan tournament down in Biloxi. That was a lot of fun. That was back in the Dan Mullen and Hugh Freeze days at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and they would come in and play in the Pro-Am. And, of course, just being around a lot of those just classic golfers from a professional standpoint is just, again, a lot of fun, a lot of positive give back to the community and, places where we do business. So
I'm trying to, all right, so I had Freddie Couples, because of y'all, all right, I had Freddie Couples on, Tom Lehman, Tom Kite, and Hale Irwin. That's one of my favorite interviews of all time. He's arguably the greatest Champions Tour golfer ever. And I didn't realize that he played football at Colorado back when it was the Big Eight. And he said, I had to because there was no money, Jim, in golf scholarships. So he had to play football so that he could continue to play golf. How about that?
It's really crazy. It's really a lot of fun when you get up and close and personal to those types of folks and kind of learn the backstories and just learn more about them.
Mm-hmm.
And David Frost, who again is a professional golfer, he has a big winery, and so a couple times while he was on the coast, we would host business events and not only talk golf, but we would talk about his wines as well. And again, just a lot of fun, for our business customers. And but those personal relationships have been great. I think about the Hall of Fame trophies, the C Spire Connerly and of course the Ferris and all of those trophies have been great. But I think about the relationships we've been able to build, of course, with the late Boo Ferris. I mean, just absolutely terrific guy. And I think about we have, of course, the C Spire Connerly coming up next week after next, and I think about all of the players who have been a part of those trophy presentations, many of which have gone on to big-time professional careers and stuff. And, it's just, again, been a lot of fun. We've been a part of that for, I think those trophy presentations go back around 25 years. So a lot of fun there, too.
Think about the pros. Eli Manning, Patrick Willis, Jarius Norwood. This is just a few of them. Dak Prescott, A.J. Brown. I mean, it's unbelievable. The guys that have been C Spire Connerly winners. Yeah, you were talking about the C Spire Connerly. Y'all are the reason why I got to interview Ron Franklin, the late Ron Franklin.
Yep.
Talking about a phenomenal broadcaster. First of all, he was really good calling college football. But I don't know if you remember this, Jim, in the 90s when it really got kicked off with ESPN and hoops. He was on Big Monday in the 90s and, flying all over the place doing college basketball games. And Ron Franklin went to Ole Miss. He lived in Texas, I think, but he was fun to interview.
Yeah, he was just a class act for sure. We've had the last couple of years Charles Davis, who's a CBS football analyst and former Tennessee football player, but we've had him in as sort of the MC for the event. And last year's event, we actually had to cancel it and move it to an online event at the last minute because we had some terrible weather that came in. And so part of the highlight of the trophy presentation, are obviously the finalists that come in, but the coaches come in and a lot of times athletic directors and everybody. And, there's always, well, not always, but a lot of times there's, some hot issues, and obviously this year's another one just from a timing standpoint, but just a lot of fun because all of those folks come in and are part of it. And we've really kind of pushed hard to change this up, and certainly a little biased, but I feel like that, this presentation that we do with the C Spire Connerly now is about as close to a localized SB type, trophy presentation. The way we do it with Charles Davis. But we have that coming up on Tuesday, November the 28th, and I believe the finalists are just from each school or have just are about to be announced.
Yeah.
And so we'll be hosting that in Jackson. And of course, if any of your listeners want to attend, they can go to the msfame.com, which is of course the Hall of Fame website to purchase tickets. And that's always a lot of fun. It'll be a good event again this year as well.
Super cool stuff. Golly, when you and I talked yesterday, I started like reminiscing or reflecting back. I was like, man, I've been on a lot of road trips, and in this area, in Memphis, on the Gulf Coast, and then you've done a million more things. But I was a little bitty part of it. But man, I got to interview some really cool people. Another one I thought of was Corey Pavin, another golfer that we had on. He was so nice.
Those senior PGA guys,
Brad Faxon, yes,
they're just terrific. They a lot of them obviously have a lot of money in their back pocket. They obviously still are very focused on golf, but they're just a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more available, and it's really great for the fans. So we've enjoyed being a part of those. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's 30 years though. It's a lot of work and a lot of fun along the way. It's certainly been good for our brand, and certainly we're going to continue focusing in sports because folks in our footprint are very passionate for sure.
One last question. Jim Richmond, Vice President of Corporate Communications for C Spire. He joins us on the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Jim, do you remember the year that y'all picked up the headsets in the SEC?
Oh, gosh. It goes way back.
Well, I see Dak with the headset, so it had to go back to at least 14, 15.
Remember, of course, we started with Cellular South on the headsets, probably the Tuberville era at Ole Miss.
Wow.
What year that was, but it goes back that far.
I didn't realize it was all the way back to Cellular South. Okay.
Yeah. Way back. Hey, but one other thing too for your listeners that are interested in this, if they'll go to the cspire.com/sports URL or website, on that site we have a short kind of hype video in relationship to kind of highlights a lot of the things we've done and some other things on that web page as well. But again, cspire.com/sports.
Jim, we appreciate it. It's good to have you back on. And what a run, 30-plus years in sports marketing around Mississippi and the Southeast, and some really, really cool stuff that y'all have done there at C Spire, and cspire.com/sports. Jim Richmond, we appreciate it, man.
Oh, I appreciate it too, man. Thanks so much.
Take care. Jim Richmond on the Out of Bounds Show with C Spire. You can hit cspire.com/sports. Pictures of Archie Manning, Dak Prescott, and many, many more. I was just along for the ride, and I was sitting there thinking all the people that I've interviewed at just different events, golf and tennis and high school football and Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame stuff. It's pretty darn cool. Ron Franklin, that just jumped out at me because when I was a kid, when I was growing up, Ron Franklin was one of the best play-by-play guys in the country, football and hoops. And I didn't realize for, years in college, I mean, I didn't have this thing, right, to look it up.
True.
Which is an iPhone, which C Spire sells, obviously. And so, or offers it through their network. And Franklin, Big Monday, you don't remember this, but Big Monday was a big deal back in the ESPN 90s days. And it kind of got you kicked off college basketball. And then he did tons and tons of SEC games and Mississippi State and Ole Miss games. That was back when it was a big deal to land a Thursday night game in Starkville and Oxford. Huge. Now,
really?
The towns wouldn't want it because of all the commerce.
Yeah.
All the money that's spent. 3 people are there for 3 nights, 2 nights, and they're spending money in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. But back in the 90s, as Mississippi State and Ole Miss were trying to kind of reboot or just build their stuff, Thursday night football was huge. My first game as a college student was Thursday night football.
Was that
at Mississippi State?
In Starkville? Wow.
MSU, Florida, Steve Spurrier.
Man, that actually sounds pretty huge.
It was big.
Like a midweek
back
game?
then, that was all. I mean, again, we didn't have computers, iPhones, podcast, sports talk radio, all the stuff that we have access to now, man. You went to the stadium or you landed a Thursday night game. It was packed. I thought it was the coolest all get out. I mean, I stayed the whole game. There wasn't any leaving for me when I was a student. I'm there. I mean,
that's how it should be, you know?
You know, basketball games, I was the same way. Baseball was easy because you're out in the left field. I had buddies whose dads had, trailer. They're now called rigs with nice grills. It wasn't like that in 1993. But yeah, Mississippi State, Florida, Thursday. And I'd drive over to Oxford for Thursday night.
For a Thursday night game.
There'd be back and forth. That's how big a deal it was.
Did you ever go to a State or Ole Miss game in Veterans Memorial? Because obviously I've never been to one.
They played there, I don't remember how long, but forever. And it switched to campus in 91.
Okay.
Well, they had to start bringing the money into Starkville and Oxford.
Yeah.
I mean, that
makes sense.
That was fun, but you had too many home games. I love Jackson. I'm from Jackson. I lived in Jackson, lived in Belhaven, loved it, every single bit of it. Still love going in there. But you had to take your home games and put them on campus. That's what happened. Oxford did it first, but they did it. I mean, that's what started the growth is more home games in Oxford and Starkville.
Yeah, more condos. I mean,
that, but also hosting players.
Oh,
I mean,
true.
how are you going to
Yeah.
host players at Veterans Memorial Stadium? So you get players on campus more when you have more home games because these guys are playing high school football. So it wasn't just commerce; it was recruiting.
Very
and then
true.
the commerce would follow.
Yeah, see, I was just thinking about like what people they would buy a condo and then rent it out for the rest of the year when they wouldn't want to go to games.
Yeah, and that's over
like,
almost now because people want to be in their place year round.
Yeah.
Now that you can work
from home. Yeah, exactly.
From anywhere. I mean, I know 9,000 people that are in Starkville and Oxford 30% of the year, if not more.
Wow.
Because they can, they've built a business. They can do what they want. It's pretty awesome.
It is.
And our two universities have more people there in the spring than even some of the bigger universities because we're so rabid in baseball. I mean, Georgia doesn't care about baseball.
No, not at all.
Auburn doesn't care about baseball. You know, there's been more. There's been a shift, the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. But Mississippi State's been in it for 40. Ole Miss has been in it for 20. All right. I just walked down memory lane. cspire.com/sports. Thanks for listening to the show. 7:30 was heavy. It's the SEC Insider Hit. It'll be on the podcast. 7:30 was heavy Mississippi State football search. There's plenty of good candidates out there. Plenty. We'll see what direction Zach Selman and Dr. Mark Keenum and their team decide to go. We'll be back tomorrow. You can go to Apple Podcast or Spotify. Search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds. And lunch today is brought to you by the amazing specialty burgers at Bulldog Burger, Lake Harbor, and Richland.